things here that I thought, having read all your books, I
Hmm.
thought the ending of this, when
Hmm.
you have the death of Indrajit, who's Ravan's
Hmm.
son,
Hmm.
was just absolutely unbelievable. It is, if I can say so, it's a bold claim, but it is that one page is nothing like what you've written before. So I wanted to
Oh,
ask you,
thank you.
did you really, I mean, many ways, like Naipaul said, writers have to exhaust themselves. Writers
Hmm.
in many ways prepare for a fight, like a boxer does. Now that one page is so breathless in its beauty and scope, and what we just didn't know about how Ram was. And so how
Hmm.
much of it was gleaned from our scriptures, and how much of it was the exhaustion, if I may say so, and the attributes that you put in that one single page of Indraj, and Rama keeping his hand on Ravan's shoulder and all that stuff. I mean,
Hmm.
that's really
Hmm.
exhilarating. Talk us
And
through that.
essentially, yeah, and essentially commiserating with Ravan as Ravan grieves for his son's, rather brutal death, a brave death. But yeah, but I think, and of course, you even in the traditional drama, in this father-son relationship is a very, very important one between Lord Ram, Lord Dashath, between Ravan and Indrajit. Uh, and it's one of the things which, in the modern cultural thing, if you notice, it doesn't get covered as much. I don't know if we've been impacted by Western paradigms where anything male is, I mean, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be discussing female relationships. Of course, we should. But perhaps, that the kind of relationships that would be shown even a few decades back in Western movies, important male relationships, you don't really see that as much. And I find the father son relationship a very important relationship to kind of show. Uh, and it's an emotional thing. When I was writing this, I'd lost my father last year, and he was Anand. You knew him, and he was a genius. My father,
Yes,
uh,
absolutely.
and he liked you a great deal. He thought you were a brilliant scientist as well. For those who don't know, my father was a scientist actually, and an engineer by training, but had got into biotech research, and he and my brothers, my twin brother Ashish and my elder brother Anish, Dada, they've started a biotech research company which has made a breakthrough in cancer. And but Anand, I had lost him yesterday. I was in last year, and I was in London. I rushed down, and so that was kind of playing in my mind. I love my son a great deal. I miss him greatly since he's in India. I'm in London, so I come down to meet him as often as I can, every long weekend if possible. Uh, so in, I guess, in War of Lanka, there are many father-son relationships that get explored, right? So there's a relationship between Vali and Angad, that gets explored when Vali dies, and through some of the incidents before that. Then Ravan and Indrajit as well. So I guess maybe it's something very, very important to me, very immediate, because there was a lot of raw emotions around it. So therefore, it came out in the books, and in a way, Lord Ram acknowledging Ravan's grief for the loss of his son. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, just before I hand over it to Gotham, I just want to say that, reiterate that many of the things that have come out through that singular interaction between Ram and Ravan, at the death of Indrajit, will really stay with me. It's really abiding. So I want to thank you for that. Really.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah,
my friend.
Gotham, over to you.
Yeah, so I'll take this question little one step forward, and I want to bring your past life into this, Amish. You were in finance, so here is a spreadsheet question for you. How much of War of Lanka, or let us say Ramchandra series, is by Valmiki, and how much by Amish? I ask this question because you have taken several liberties. You have taken
Hmm.
liberties with your characters. You have taken liberty with your story. You have taken
Hmm.
liberties with geographical locations, with sequences, some of the sequences that are etched in our hearts.
Mm.
since our childhood. You have challenged them, and yet it all seems to come together in some manner, So I too have written a novel. I too have taken several liberties with my Mahabharat characters, but I left the core characters intact. Your
Mm.
liberty is at a different level.
Mm.
You molded the story to the liberty you are taking, and yet your books work so well. So just
Mm.
tell us a little more about how you stretch your characters, your stories. We are suddenly veering away from the Ramayana that we know, and yet
Mm.
we are part of the way Ramayana as a river flows. Particularly, Ramayana beats in every Indian's heart. How do you
Yeah.
take these liberties? How do you get away with it?
Gautam, if I can actually question the word liberty itself in this context, of course, I'm a lover of freedoms, but there's this very. In fact, I'd said this in a few of my interviews during this tour that taking creative liberties is this Western concept, right? And it comes with this air of rebellion, right? That look at me, I'm this brave rebel and a brave rebel artist, and I'm taking on, the dark establishment, and and saying something new. And it's a very Western, that individualistic uh, approach to art often. And I wonder if those of us who are deep in the Indic way ever do that. You know, when Tulsi Goswami Tulsi Das ji, for example, he changed the Ramcharit Manas quite a lot. The Uttarkand of the Valmiki Ramayana is not there in the Ramcharit Manas, right? That's a very major change. There are various versions like this. And if you could go back in time and ask them, if you could translate this term creative liberty with all its, attached impressions that come with it, and you ask them, do you think you've taken a creative liberty? They would say, of course not. This is just another interpretation which we have put with devotion at the feet of the God we worship, right? Um so for me, in my mind, I know it might sound strange and maybe slightly old world. I don't think I'm doing anything which is a quote unquote creative liberty. I'm taking a different, interpretation to approach and understand the stories of the gods and goddesses that who I worship. Uh, and if you write from that perspective, it just comes across, at least to me, it comes through very easily. Uh, it's almost a bit like I'm a channel, and Lord Shiva is kind of sending the blessing, uh, and my job is to just receive it and transmit it into the laptop, uh, which is what has allowed me to write so many rather long books, man. 10 books in 12 years, and my books tend to be on average a little long, 400, 500 pages. They're not really short books. They involve a lot of research, a lot of this thing, but it comes through because I don't think I am kind of trying. I don't. In fact, to be honest, I don't think I'm creating. I'm just receiving. In some ways. There's a lovely line we Shaivite say, Udvat karma. Sorry. Yaddat karma karumi tadadakilam shambho tavaradhanam. That whatever I do, my Lord, I do it as a prayer to you, Lord Shiva. Uh, and if you write with that perspective, things just come very easily. It's not. I don't know if I'm able to get my point across, but it's not like this quote unquote creative liberty, rebelling, and artist as this great driver types. It's not really like that.
No,
At least I don't see it that way.
I didn't mean it like that either. I'm just looking
Ha.
at some of your characters. Let's look at
Hmm.
Vali. I don't
Hmm.
want to put any spoilers for those who haven't read it here, so we
Okay,
will
for
not.
those who haven't read, yeah, if you, yeah. So just
Right?
be careful.
Yeah. So let's look at the way you have shown depicted Wali's character. It's
Hmm.
completely very different from
From what we've
we
seen.
have
What do you
what we
think
have
of it?
seen.
What do you
Brilliant,
think of it?
brilliant,
Yeah.
brilliant. I mean, it's such a fresh approach. My
Hmm.
question was not taking negative liberties. My question
Hmm.
was, see, generally you take liberties, with people around. You create some new characters, which you
Hmm.
have also in this book and all your
Hmm.
other books, and then you let them play around and fool around, and you keep the or at least that's what I do. And I keep the main story going the way it has been. I'm a Puritan in that way. You have
Right.
gone
Fair
and
enough.
changed the basic structure of the
Mm.
story. So this is not a criticism. This is just like, how do
Fair.
you do it, man?
Very erudite minds, and lots to learn from all of you. But interesting, that Amish, you say greatness comes from grief.
Mm.
Happiness cannot be the source of greatness. I'm not saying who said it and what context. I'm not getting there, but this
Mm.
concept is phenomenal. Where did it hit you from? Is it a personal or anecdote, or a slice of your own life, or do you believe you read it somewhere? Can you share it with all of us? Amazing concept,
Uh,
though.
Anand, thanks for that. I mean, I don't think we'll be giving a spoiler if we say this is Ravan's philosophy. And of course, Goddess Sita disagrees with this. But, it comes from, I think there are some Kashmiris here. In fact, even non Kashmiris, I'm sure would have heard of Ras Tarangini by Kalhana. And there's this line in there. I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember the exact line, but which says that when good fortune is about to bless you with the greatest of glories, is exactly when retreating misfortune will increase the power of the sorrows you suffer. Uh, the interpretation being is that's the way the universe balances itself, right? If you are being given more than you deserve, say in your career, you will suffer more, more than what is fair in your personal life, or vice versa. It's the way the universe balances itself. That's a concept. Uh, so it started from there, and then Ravan kind of explores it in a character that are we confusing causality, that greatness will lead to grief because it's a universe balancing itself. He says maybe it's the other way around, that grief leads to greatness. Because his entire concept, if you think about happiness, what we've been taught also, right? That if you want to be happy, you have to manage your own mind, because the external world will not make you happy. It is your internal conversation, your mind, that will make you happy. Um, but see, if you're happy, then you don't really want to change the world, because you'll accept the world for what it is. Uh, and if you accept the world for what it is, then how can you become great? Because great are those people who expend tremendous amounts of energy to change the world. And what drives you to do that? And his theory is essentially grief makes you so unhappy that you keep wanting to change things, hoping it will bring you happiness. And of course, it will not bring you happiness, because the external world can never give you happiness, but it drives you towards greatness. So then his theory is you can either be great or you can be happy. Because if you're happy, you don't want to change the world, you're happy with who you are. So you can either be great or you can be happy. You can't be both. That's Ravan's theory.
Reviewed it and I've given you the feedback also in person.
Mm,
The amount of liberties you've taken by like putting the whole Nirbhaya case in
mm,
the inserting it in the
mm,
Ramayana,
mm,
and still the whole right wing is cheering for you. That
mm.
has to be an act of diplomacy.
It's not
So,
an act of diplomacy. Anuradha ji, I'll tell you, one of the things I've seen,
hmm,
because, if you think about, I was trying to put this, what does Lord Ram stand for? That you have to
hmm,
follow the law under every circumstances, right?
hmm,
That's what he stands for.
right.
And in opposition to that would be this argument that if the cause of justice is served by breaking the law, then break the law, right? And Lord Ram's approach is if everyone starts doing that, you'll have vigilantism and you'll have chaos, right? And I
I,
wanted to have this debate, right, between Lord Ram and Lord Bharat. Okay, Prabhu Shri Ram and Prabhu Shri Bharat. Uh, and essentially, it's an incident to kind of bring that debate up. I don't think we debate that issue enough, in our times. What happens when law and justice are in conflict with each other? And in
I,
terms of diplomacy, I'll tell you one of the learnings I have had in India. Uh, Indians, I think, see intentions a lot more. I've given this example in some of my TV interviews that if you think about it, if an Indian producer or director had been told that shoot a scene where the main lead actor breaks the base of a shivling and then lifts it up on his shoulder and then carries it to a waterfall and then places it under the waterfall, any producer or director would tell you, have you gone mad? But in the hands of a very obviously devout person like Rajamouli ji, it is one of the most iconic scenes in Indian cinema, in Bahubali. One of the reasons I love our country is I think Indians see intentions. And the intentions are, genuinely devout. They don't oppose. They don't oppose. I think they can see it. At least that's what I believe.
I hope so. I hope so. I mean, I understand that.
Before
Well,
I give it back to Gautam and Anand, just on the fly, who is your favorite female character in Lanka? Not the book, The War on of Lanka, but in Sri Lanka or Lanka.
That's a difficult call. In War of Lanka, I mean, of the characters in there, because Sitama, etc., from Sitama, everyone else are from the mainland and not from the
Yes, yeah.
islands.
So that doesn't
I
qualify.
would think
Sita
of
Mata doesn't qualify.
doesn't qualify. So I
Yeah.
would think of Mandodari actually.
I thought so.
Mandodari is actually listed among the Panchakanya who uh, who are researched and analyzed, by our ancients to see what was special in those five women and what can we learn from them. And Mandodari ji is of course out there. And to me, she came across as a character who, um, you know, is honest enough to know what her husband is, right? Unlike Kumbhakarna, who in some ways is in denial about his brother, right? Kumbhakarna doesn't really accept what Ravan actually is in many ways, right? But Mandodari clearly is aware, but her love for her son keeps her there. But she makes sure that she'll not, at least in my book, she'll not uh, if the tree is poisonous, then the fruit of the tree will also be poisonous. So she'll not take any money from Ravan. She'll not take any of his luxuries. She'll live as a sannyasin in a small hut, but she'll just want to be around her son. Uh, in many ways, a very intelligent, wise woman,
Yeah,
and
because
very clear
what
and very
that will,
clear-headed,
yeah,
willing to speak harsh truths. Very willing
exactly.
to speak harsh truths to
Yes,
her
yes,
son, to others. Very
yes.
willing to speak. Yeah.
Indeed. I mean, that's what really strikes me. When people kind of today's generation, they
Hmm.
possibly think that our scriptures and all these tales are not very progressive or are patriarchal. Ab maine kaha, bhai pad lo. I mean,
hmm,
the character that you're describing is just unbelievable. I mean, it should be a source of inspiration for forget about adult women, even kids, women.
hmm,
Anand, forget about my books. Even in our traditional texts, they are extremely progressive. See, one of the lucky things about being an Indian is we can be traditional and liberal at the same time. I'm living in London right now. One of the dichotomies we are presented with in the West is you can either be traditional or you can be liberal. You can't be both, right? So the West has chosen liberalism. So yes, what is good is that they have the space for LGBT rights. They have the space for women's rights, which is of course very good, right? But in destroying all their or most of their traditions, in destroying their sense of community, in destroying their family, the entire Western society has been atomized in many ways. There was a minister of loneliness. I don't know how many of the listeners are aware. The UK had a minister of loneliness once. Yeah, seriously, I kid you not. And I don't know who thought that the government will be a solution to loneliness. Okay. And what kind of society gets created when you attack all traditions, when you attack all sense of community, that we can actually see it, right? Uh, and On the other hand, you see societies in the Middle East where there is, yes, strong sense of community, which is very good, strong sense of traditions, which keeps their society strong. But yes, sadly, no space for women's rights. Absolutely no space for LGBT rights. Some of the countries have the death penalty actually for quote unquote unnatural sexual relations. Uh, but in India's traditions, we can do both. We can be traditional and liberal at the same time because our ancient scriptures, our ancient traditions are actually deeply liberal.